Dorothy Harriet Camille Arnold was last seen on December 12, 1910, in New York City, New York County, New York. Her date of birth is believed to be either 1884 or July 1st, 1885. The age at the time of her disappearance is believed to be 25 years old. She's a white female between 5 feet to 5 foot 4, 140 to 160 pounds, hair color dark brown, eye color gray/blue, and she had no known aliases or nicknames. She also had no known distinguishing marks or features, and other things like dentals, fingerprints, and DNA are unknown. When it comes to clothing, she had a tailor-made blue serge coat suit, hip length, cut in at waist, skirt cut straight, a black velvet hat lined in pale Alice blue and decorated with 2 blue roses, a jabot of white lace, low black shoes, silk stockings, tan gloves. For jewelry, she was last seen in a gold ring, 2 gold bands twisted together, and drop earrings of lapis lazuli, blue and plainly set. She also had limitation tortoise comb in hair and a fancy barrette, dark brown and deeply carved. 1 long, very dark blue hat comb of lapis lazuli carried large black fox muff, fur-tipped and white points, carried also black cloth handbag containing between $20 to $30 and some personal cards. Regarding the circumstances of Dorothy's disappearance, she was last seen on 5th Avenue and 27th Street on the morning of December 12, 1910. Dorothy left her parents' home at 108th Street, 79th Street in Manhattan to go shopping for an evening dress. She had a bank account of her own, as well as accounts at several of the stores. She left the house at 11:30 a.m., and several acquaintances stopped and spoke with her as she walked west along 5th Avenue. Others saw her going towards a bookstore on 27th Street, where she bought a book between 1 and 2 p.m. They all said that she seemed cheerful. When she failed to return to 79th Street for dinner that night, her family telephoned friends, but she had not been seen by any of them. The family decided to keep Dorothy's disappearance a secret, conducting discreet investigations through a friend of the family and with the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Her parents spent thousands of dollars with the Pinkertons, but they had no more success than family attorney and friend John S. Keith. Mr. Keith had often escorted Dorothy to social functions. For weeks, he searched hospitals, morgues, and jails in New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. The secret investigations continued for 6 weeks before the Arnold family finally turned to the police and the newspapers. Dorothy had been involved in a relationship with a man whom her family did not approve, George Griscom Jr. Mr. Griscom was in Italy at the time of Dorothy's disappearance and claimed to have no knowledge of what happened to her. He did have a letter Dorothy had written to him admitting that she was depressed over a recent magazine rejection due to a story she had written. In the letter, she claimed, "All that I can see ahead is a long road with no turning." This led some to speculate that she had committed suicide. Mr. Griscom spent a large amount of money on searching for Dorothy. Years after Dorothy's disappearance, a Rhode Island convict claimed that he had been paid $150 to dig her grave. He did not know the name of the person who paid him, but claimed that he looked much like Mr. Griscom. The convict also claimed that Dorothy had died after a botched abortion and was buried in the basement of a house near West Point. Police searched various basements, but never found the body of Ms. Arnold. Unfortunately, there is no known agency name, agency contact person, or agency phone number for anyone to contact if they have information about Dorothy's case. And unfortunately, because of those reasons, this case will probably always remain unsolved. Bessie Louise Hayley Hyde was last seen on November 15, 1928, and the location she was last seen in is believed to be Arizona. Her date of birth was December 29, 1905, and was 23 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was a white female, 5 feet tall, and was 90 pounds. She had brown hair and brown eyes, and her former married name is Helmick. She had no known distinguishing marks or features, and there were no dental, fingerprint, or DNA records available. It was unknown what clothing she was wearing at the time of her disappearance, as well as it was unknown if she was wearing any jewelry. Bessie was raised in Parkersburg, West Virginia. She married Earl Helmick on June 5, 1926, in Cattlesburg, Kentucky. Bessie and Earl had attended high school and college together. She returned to West Virginia shortly after their wedding. A local newspaper reported that Bessie planned to study art during the following year in San Francisco, California. No explanation of her decision was given, and rumors persisted that Bessie was pregnant, which had never been confirmed. It is believed that Bessie and Helmick never lived together during their marriage. Bessie departed from San Francisco in February of 1927 and traveled abroad a passenger ship to Los Angeles, California. She met an Idaho farmer and outdoorsman named Glenn Hyde. During the trip, the two began a romantic relationship. Helmick refused to agree to a divorce, so Bessie moved to Elko, Nevada to meet residency requirements for a decree in that state. Their divorce was finalized on April 11, 1928. Bessie and Glenn wed in Twin Falls, Idaho on April 12th. Glenn and Bessie took a honeymoon rafting trip down the Green River and Colorado River during the fall of 1928. Glenn was an experienced rafter while Bessie was somewhat of a novice. They boarded a handmade, flat-bottomed wooden sweepsco, a craft commonly used for Idaho river rafting at the time. Glenn refused to carry life preservers or jackets on board, also keeping with the general rafting customs of the day. The couple arrived at the home of the Emery Kolb, a photographer who maintained a small writing business on the rim of the Grand Canyon in northern Arizona on November 15th. The Hyde said that they had been rafting for the previous 26 days and were pausing to restock their supplies. They asked Kolb to take a photo of them posing by the canyon's rim. They planned to retrieve the picture on the return trip a short time afterward. Kolb believed that Bessie appeared apprehensive about the remainder of the journey. Kolb attempted to tell Glenn that he needed some form of life-saving equipment on board, but Glenn disagreed the warning. Glenn and Bessie departed Kolb's property after restocking their raft near Bright Angel Trail. The couple has never been heard from again. Glenn's father assisted with the search effort when the Hydes failed to return to Idaho by early December 1928. A small plane located their abandoned raft in the river in mid-December. The craft was upright and fully stocked with supplies, but there was no sign of Glenn or Bessie. Water was also discovered on board the boat, but authorities were not certain if it was part of the Hyde supply or simply overflow from the rapids. An extensive search of the area produced no clues as to Glenn and Bessie's whereabouts. Investigators determined that the couple was presumed to have died in some type of accident in the river. Glenn's father believed that they had difficulties with their craft and attempted to hike out of the Grand Canyon but became lost and died in the woods. No evidence has been located to support that theory. Bessie and Glenn's disappearances are no longer being investigated by law enforcement, but fascination with their cases continues. Brad Dimmick wrote a book detailing the disappearances in 2001 entitled Sunk Without a Sound. Unfortunately, just like the last case, there is no known agency name, agency contact number, or agency contact person that you can contact if you have information about this case, so just like the last one, it will most likely forever remain unsolved. Mary Agnes Moroney is considered endangered missing and was last seen May 15, 1930 in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois. Her date of birth was May 9, 1928, and if she was still alive today, she would be 89 years old. At the time of her disappearance, she was 2. She was a white female, 3 feet tall, 20 pounds, blonde hair, blue eyes. She has a strawberry birthmark on her face and a scar on her belly button, abdomen, and ruptured hernia. She was left-handed. Unfortunately, there are no dental, fingerprint, or DNA samples available in the case. Mary disappeared from her home on May 15, 1930. An ad had been placed in a Chicago newspaper asking for help for the Moroney family. A woman who gave the name of Mrs. Julia Otis responded to the ad claiming to be a social worker. She first appeared on May 14, 1930, and spent time with Mary's mother and sister. The next day, Julia Otis again came to the house, bringing gifts and money for the family. Julia asked if she could take Mary shopping for new clothes and shoes. Julia Otis then took Mary down the street, and she was never seen again. The next day, the Moroneys got a letter from Julia Otis saying she was taking Mary to California and would bring her back in 2 months' time. 2 weeks later, another letter was received from a woman named Alice Henderson. The letter stated that Julia Otis was her cousin, and the reason she had taken Mary was because Julia's husband and daughter had died the year before. Mrs. Henderson wrote that Julia Otis would bring Mary back soon. Julia Otis was described as being around 22 years old and well-dressed with a cultured voice. She had protruding teeth and claimed to be a social worker named Mrs. Henderson had sent her in. Although no specific detective is assigned to the case, it is still considered to be open. If you have any information regarding this case, you can call Detective Mart Skewers at the Chicago Police Department. Phone number 312-744-8266. That's 312-744-8266.